Hi, it's Geoff from discoverdouble-bass.com. I've got a really short video where I'm going to review the Acoustic Image Clarus SL. So I've used an earlier version of this amplifier for the last 10 years and I've had a really great experience, but this new model has got pretty much the same features. So I thought I'd just talk you through them and let you know how I've found they work with the double bass on a gig. So the input impedance is set for the double bass, and that's because you have a high input impedance like 1 mega ohm or 10 mega ohms, which are the two options here, for a piezo pickup. Bass guitar amplifiers typically have a lower impedance for magnetic pickups. I don't really understand the science, but when I plug into this, the natural sound is better than when I plug into most bass guitar amplifiers. So that's a great start. The other thing it has is a real favourite feature of mine, which is a high pass filter, sometimes called a low cut filter, and that's really effective. It just cuts all this extreme low end below the frequencies that you're playing, and that will help you combat feedback and sometimes tighten up the bottom end of your sound if you're struggling to hear yourself. Pretty much that's the only knob that I'm adjusting on the amplifier as I'm playing. So the other ones we've got here, these controls are, what do we have? Yeah, the input gain, and we've got the EQ, which is voiced for a double bass. So it's, you know, you're going to be working with the Y EQ points there. Yeah, we've got the DI pad, so if the signal's too hot being sent to the DI, which is when you're sending it to the mixing desk at the front of house. So if you're working with a sound engineer, they might find the signal too strong. You've got the option of reducing it there. That can be really useful. And of course you've got a mute switch, which I think is great. I really like the light on the mute switch. I think that's really helpful in order for me to see what's going on. Sometimes it can be a little hard to read the dials on this, but when you get used to any amplifier, it's never really a big problem on stage. Power wise, it's a 600 watt amp and I've never had any issues with volume. There's always been more than enough, and I think if you're using a decent speaker cabinet, I use a Euphonic Audio M-Line 112 Wizzy, you can get a lot of volume out of this cabinet. And if you want to be playing really insane volume levels, you're probably looking at getting huge, you know, 4x10 speaker cabinets and maybe even higher powered, you know, head than this. But in terms of volume, I never get anywhere near maxing it out. And, you know, I do play some loud gigs. So, yeah, I think that's a really great thing about it. And although I love the fact that with little combo amps, you can just, it's a one-handed carry, it's a small thing. This is so small. And if your speaker breaks, you've still got an amp. And if you want to go on a tour, you can take this with you a lot easier than you could do a large speaker cabinet. So I think that's a really nice thing about having a separate amplifier and head. And just lastly, there is one other thing that I wanted to mention, which is that I only use, this is a single channel amplifier, and I use this amplifier when I'm doubling, and specifically what helps me is this cable, which is a Planet Wave circuit breaker, and it's got a mute switch on the end, so I can mute it in my bass guitar, pull it out, put it in the double bass, put the mute back on, and there won't be any loud noises or pops and what have you. So I found that to be a really, you know, useful thing. And of course, if you're sat really close to the amplifier, you could mute it on the amp. I just find that the sort of convenience factor of this is really handy. Yeah, so I don't think that it's worth the extra, you know, expense of having the 2-channel version if you're doing the kind of work that I am. If you're doing a lot of work with, perhaps you're blending different pickups and you're that kind of player where you're experimenting a bit more than I do, then you might want to check out the 2-channel version. So what does it sound like? It's really natural. It's a really clean sound. But what you're hearing right now is my Fisherman Full Circle pickup, my strings, my speaker cabinet. You're not really hearing the amp, and that's because it's a very transparent sound. So if that's what you're looking for, a real acoustic sound, then I'd recommend you try it out. But in a way, listening to me play now isn't going to help you in terms of evaluating whether it's the right sound for you, because there's just too many variables at play. But that said, I really love the tone, and I think you will do too if you want something that just helps your instrument shine. So I hope you enjoyed that today. I hope you found it useful. Big thanks to Acoustic Image for sending me the amp, and if you've got any questions, just post them below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.